Hey everybody, it's Alex from Alex and Erika's channel, and today we are going to talk about Athens, Greece. This video is specifically for anybody visiting Athens by a cruise ship. So we recently visited Athens on a cruise, and I wanted to make a short summary. One of the things I've noticed when I've been doing research on ports and places that we would go visit in Europe is oftentimes you find informative videos that are very good, but they're usually designed for people that are going to be going there on a vacation for several days. And as you know, if you're going to be going there on a cruise, you're only going to have a limited amount of time. So it's really important to maximize your time so you can really take advantage of everything there is to offer when you're in port. And as you know, if you watch some of my other videos, the reason I like making these videos is because for a lot of people taking a vacation, especially when you're going to Europe, that's a huge expense. It's maybe once in a lifetime type of vacation. And so I really want to see people go and be prepared so they can maximize that time and take full advantage. Whether you're going to do a private tour or just go on your own, it's really important to kind of have a plan. It's kind of frustrating when you see people show up like the day of, they get off the ship and they're like, what do we do? And you're like, I don't know. And it's kind of unfortunate that you don't do a little bit of research in advance so you can really take advantage. So with Athens, the port is it's a very industrial port. Your ship is going to pull up, it's going to dock at the pier, you're going to walk right off, which is nice. You don't have to worry about water taxis or anything like that. Euro is going to be the currency. So if you're traveling through Europe, if you're on a cruise ship, what my experience has been is most cruise ships that are doing European ports will have ATMs on the ship that will dispense euros. So it's always good. Just about everybody will take your credit card, which I always recommend using your credit card when you're traveling. But it's always a good idea to have a few euros on hand just for incidental expenses. So you exit the cruise ship, make sure you have your photo ID, your cruise ship card, and whatever else you think you're going to need for that day. Definitely some good walking shoes because Athens is going to be a place where you do a lot of walking. Most of the time it seems like cruise ships will spend 10 to 12 hours in Athens, but obviously be sure to double check. The other thing that's nice to know too, I always suggest using Cruise Mapper. It's a website or an app. You can look up a port of call. You can put in the date that you're going to be visiting that port. And it's going to tell you how many cruise ships will be in port that particular date. So that's nice because then it will give you a feel for like how busy things are going to be. Because Athens can get pretty busy. So when it comes to Athens and just a lot of different ports that you're visiting on a Mediterranean cruise, you're kind of going to fall into two categories. You're going to fall into the category of doing a shore excursion through the cruise line. That's organized through the cruise line. That gets that obviously comes with a lot of benefits. The benefits are that you're guaranteed for the ship to wait for you if there's any delays. A lot of cruise lines will guarantee the price. You know, you're going to be in a larger group, which is good and bad. Sometimes that's bad because you only move as quickly as the slowest person in that group. But then the other category you're going to be in is someone that wants to venture out and do it on their own and explore on their own. And on the surface, when you're kind of starting to do research for your cruise, Athens seems really overwhelming because there's a lot going on. It's a huge city. You can make it very simple and easy to navigate and get around. And it doesn't have to be too overwhelming. I think with just a little bit of planning, you'll feel like you can navigate the city fairly easily. And you'll be able to see some of the historic sites and some of the places that a lot of people want to see. All right, so if you watched our particular video, and if you watched some of the videos that we had for our trip through Europe, we did a lot of private shore excursions on our own. We typically always do that. We usually never do them through the cruise line, but everybody is different depending on what your preference is. This, we didn't even do an excursion on our own. What we did is when we exited the ship, you're going to see right there at the pier, there's a couple different companies. There's, and I believe they're red buses or blue buses, and they're double-decker buses. And from my experience and the research I did, navigating around Athens via the double-decker bus is really easy. And it was a really, really solid way to get around and see some of the most historic and most popular tourist attractions. The Acropolis is what everybody typically wants to see in Athens. And you'll see when you get off the bus, you can buy your ticket. The ticket prices will vary depending on when you're watching this video. But They're going to give you a map. You'll see the line that you're going to be on with your particular bus. You're going to have different stops where you can hop on and hop off. So we took the double-decker bus. We took the line that basically took us along the route, and we stopped at the Panathinaik Stadium. You can do some research on the history of the stadium. It's hosted Olympic Games, has a ton of history. That was where we did our first stop. In hindsight, I think I might have opted for going directly to the Acropolis, because the Acropolis is what everybody goes to, and that just gets really busy. So I'd suggest either do the Acropolis first or do it later in the day. But later in the day, you're going to start cutting it close with your back on board time, depending on when your ship leaves. But later in the day could be really cool. If you have a back on board time that's rather later in the day or in the early evening, then I definitely do the Acropolis later in the day, just because the sun will be a little softer. The lighting up there is really cool, and the views are just spectacular. So the route, as you can see in this video, you can see some of the route in the areas that we took. We used the double-decker bus. We were on and off it a few times throughout the day. Again, we went to the Acropolis. I'd suggest doing this first thing in the morning or maybe a little bit later in the day, depending on when your cruise ship leaves. The walk up and down there is it's a walk, but it's very manageable. Erika's father, who had just had knee surgery like 3 or 4 months prior to us taking this vacation, he was able to get up and down and navigate pretty easily. The thing is also, like, we were traveling with Emma, and she was in a stroller. So anybody traveling with a stroller, or if you're in a wheelchair, you're going to go up a separate ramp, and then that's going to take you to an elevator. That elevator will take you to the top. But you can't, only the person that needs assistance pushing the wheelchair or the person pushing the stroller goes. Everybody else goes the other way, which is walking and winding their way up to the top of the Acropolis. So keep that in mind. Whether or not you have cell phone service, or you can drop a pin with your location, you're going to reconnect at the top. There is, depending on how busy it is, there'll be a lot of people up there, but you'll see as you come up to the main stairs, the main entrance, on the left is where people are going to exit. There's a long, skinny walkway, and that's where people are going to exit when they're getting off the elevator. And you'll do the same thing going back down. There's bathrooms up there, so just so you know, just an FYI. And then depending on how much time you want to spend up there is entirely up to you. It just depends on how many other sites you want to see. I'd encourage you to look at the map in advance, the map of the buses that I'm talking about. Whether you do the red or the blue, it's really entirely up to you. They all have a very similar route that they take. But look at some of the sites that you want to see. Budget an hour to 2 hours. The Acropolis, 2, maybe 3 hours for getting up and down and navigating around and taking a few photos and enjoying that. And then maybe some of the other sites an hour or 2, depending on how large that particular site is. And then buy your tickets in advance if you can. I would really encourage you to buy the tickets in advance if that's an option. If not, you can buy the tickets the day of, but to avoid some of the traffic and some of the lines, it's just easier if you can buy them in advance. So it's very rare for tickets to actually sell out for the day of. It is nice if you can get tickets in advance, but just keep in mind there's some third-party sites out there, so sometimes you're not really dealing with the official website. So make sure you're just dealing with the official website. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. Hopefully that's helpful. If not, there were other people, not in our group, but other people on the cruise ship that we were there with, and they had not purchased their tickets in advance. They just bought them the day of, and the line wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty reasonable, and they went through the line pretty quickly. So that's something to keep in mind. Once you finish there, depending on your time, depending on your schedule, I would suggest walking back down, finding like a local spot to maybe get like lunch or an appetizer. We stopped here at this local spot where we had like some kebabs, some chicken. It was really good. But it was just a little hole in the wall spot. We stopped for a couple appetizers, a couple drinks. And then after we had the kebabs, after we had our afternoon snack lunch, some of us did some shopping. The thing that got a little tricky for us, I think our back on board time was like 4:30. We did run it a little close on that. If you watch our video, if we would have got back on the double-decker bus, we would have really cut it close to get back to the cruise port on time. So what we ended up doing is we went out to the street in the direction that we needed to go for the cruise port, and we got individual taxis. I think it cost us like 25 or 28 euros to take a taxi back to the cruise port. A little bit more expensive than what we were going to spend taking the bus, but again, that's always like my fallback option. If you watch some of our videos, a lot of times we start, we explore a lot on our own when we're doing cruises or wherever we're at in the world. And usually an Uber, a taxi is always our go-to option. And I like to start working our way back to the port within a couple hours of that back on board time just to be safe. I think in this situation, we started that process like within an hour of our back on board time, but we got back, even though everybody was back on the ship. We weren't the last ones back on the ship. There were still a few people out there, but as you can see, as we're walking through the pier, we had time to do some more souvenir shopping at a duty-free shop that was right there at the pier. And then we got back on the ship, and we were back within the back on board time. So just keep that in mind. If you're starting to run close, or that bus, if you're doing a double-decker bus and it's a little slow or a little delayed, worst case scenario, get a taxi. Hop in the taxi, tell them you're going to the cruise port, tell them the ship you're going to, and they'll take you there right away. So I think that's the main topics I wanted to kind of cover for anybody that's going to be visiting Athens, specifically on a cruise ship. Again, you're going to do a cruise excursion on your own. That's fantastic. That's great. You're going to have a lot of guarantees, and you're maybe going to be limited in some of the time that you have available, but if you're going to go out and go on your own, because the port itself is very industrial, there's not a lot to see right there within the port area. And if you're kind of limited on a budget, or you just don't want to spend a lot of money, we had spent a considerable amount of money on some of the other excursions we did at other ports that were pretty expensive, that this was like a perfect option where we used the double-decker bus, hop on, hop off. We saw a lot of the city. We saw all the sites that we wanted to see. Athens is an incredible place, a place that we'd love to go back and spend some additional time at. But doing this double-decker bus was a great option, so keep that in mind. If you found this video helpful, please share it in one of your Facebook groups or with anybody you're going to be traveling with. And then if you have any questions, or if you have any feedback, or if you visit Athens and you want to leave a comment below, just leave a comment below. I'd love to get some feedback and hear from you. So hope you're having a fantastic day, and we will talk to you soon. And don't forget to subscribe.